Holly Holm knows main events. Holly Holm knows 5-round fights. Matt, coming up this weekend, the former women's bantamweight champ again looks to turn away another rising up-and-comer. And of late, I mean, you look at it. Irene Aldana, Holly Holm put on a clinic, even though Aldana had a broken foot. Against Ketlen Vieira, most people thought Holly Holm won, but Vieira was the winner. And now, coming up this weekend, the 3rd-ranked Holm takes on the 10th-ranked Sheetara. Mayra Bueno Silva. And Matt, if you look at it for Silva, 3 big wins in a row. She's got finishes coming out of everywhere. The knee bar winner last time out was the free fight on the YouTube. See, we're doing it live. The YouTube page of the UFC, it was that crazy, crazy knee bar. So for Mayra Bueno Silva, I mean, whether she's training at home in Brazil, she's coming over for the States to get in some of that good work. I mean, she really has leveled up her game as she's gone on. And Bueno Silva, a bantamweight, she's got flyweight experience, but definitely really kind of grown into the skill set at bantamweight, where we even saw her at flyweight picking up a giant win over Jillian Robertson, the all-time flyweight submission winner.
I'm going to be so curious to see these two face off on Friday during weigh-ins, because in my mind, Holly Holm has a big physicality advantage in this matchup. Like, we've seen Holly Holm, yes, maybe be the smaller fighter in some of the matchups. The Chris Cyborg fight comes to mind. GDR, Megan Anderson. But what Holly Holm's able to do over a lot of those fighters is at least out-physical them in some positions. And a lot of those positions have come down to the clinch. Because Holly Holm, I know people are going to bring up the head kicks. You can look at the Betch Correia fight. You can look at the you can look at the Ronda Rousey fight. But Holly Holm at this stage of her career is much more of a controlling fighter, I would say, than somebody who's going to go out there and give you that 3-piece with a soda, the soda being that left head kick. And that's always been my really difficult thing with predicting these Holly Holm fights, especially at this stage of her career. Because I bring up Andre Arlovski a little bit earlier in the Walt Harris fight on purpose. We see different fighters age at different rates, right? And some fighters, like a Robbie Lawler, for instance, who we just saw last weekend, he aged, but his fighting style...
He said he had no power.
Well, he beat Nico Price pretty quick, and even he said he only felt good that day and not really the 7 weeks leading up to it. But my point is, some fighters will still fight in the same manner like a guy like Robbie Lawler will. He still fights the same way he pretty much always has. For Holly Holm, she's not going to go out there and still do that corkscrew up the middle, use the jab, set up a lot of the head kicks, but... I still think she's going to be able to use a lot of her distance to make this fight really difficult for Bueno Silva at her own distance. Because at kicks, I think Holly Holm can do enough to at least keep the distance in the fight. So for Silva, if she gets the takedown, listen, I think she is the more adept grappler. She has the higher chance of getting a submission. We've seen that, especially throughout her recent run. I just don't know how she's going to get the fight to the mat against a fighter like Holly Holm.
Holm's a boxing Hall of Famer. You know this. She did it last year. Holm kickboxes in MMA, which is great. She goes 1, 2, 3 head kick, and that's the set combination. Now, has she gotten away from it recently? Yeah, I would say that she has. And for Holm, with the takedowns, with the threat of the clinch work, if Holly Holm can out-clinch Yana Santos, and that's what Yana Santos does, then that bodes pretty well. And if you look at the last 4 fights for Holly Holm since she's been out of title contention, because they haven't really been title contender fights.
That's fair, exactly.
Raquel Pennington, Aldana, Yana Santos, she was able to do it in all of those fights. And the split decision loss against Ketlen Vieira, it was more of the same, even though, again, judges scoring that fight for Vieira. If you look at the title fights, Amanda Nunes is a title fight. Chris Cyborg is a title fight. Jermaine Durandamy is a title fight. Miesha Tate's a title fight. Ronda Rousey's a title fight. There's a lot of title fights out there for Holly Holm. The last time she got submitted was against Miesha Tate, UFC 196, one of those rare title fight, but the main event's not for a title when Conor McGregor fought Nate Diaz for the first time. Holm loses that one by finish. Holm's finishes, though, few and far between after the Ronda Rousey fight. Betch Correia is one. That's a performance bonus. She had a fight of the night against Chris Cyborg, which even though it seems close on the rewatch and by the numbers, it's not the closest fight. It's a really weird fight. Holly Holm in this one, though, when I look at the battle for battle, kickboxer, boxer, Holly Holm, Mayra Bueno Silva, boxer. And the thing that I really like out of Bueno Silva in most of her fights is that she mixes it really well to the body and to the head. I don't know if that's going to be there against Holly Holm. And I know Holm isn't as young as she used to be, but the way that she moves laterally and circles away from the power hand all the time, I don't know if that's going to get her either caught by the left hook to the body or if she's just going to be able to skip to my Lou like she normally does.
And I think we will see a lot of that outside movement because for Holly Holm, Katlyn Chookagian's not the best comp by any means because Holly Holm's going to throw a lot more from a set position and not while moving backwards, but she is going to use that movement very effectively, almost like an offensive tool, just to frustrate her opponent, really prevent them from being able to corner her up against the cage. And the thing about Holm is, too, we even saw this in the Rousey fight before she got the knockout. If you do close that distance, she is more than happy to go for the clinch herself. herself and even go for her own offensive takedowns. We saw that in the Megan Anderson fight. Now, I don't think Holly Holm should go for a lot of takedowns against Mayra Bueno Silva, if I'm being completely honest, but it is something in her back pocket that we have seen every now and then. It's not at the forefront of her game by any means, but it's always something you have to bring up because, like you say, when you think about Holly Holm, it's the boxing, it's the kickboxing, and all the crazy accolades and titles, but she has formed herself into a more well-rounded mixed martial artist. The only issue I have is if she is just going to have a lot of clinch work, if she is going to go out there for a lot of control, does Mayra Bueno Silva need even like a ton of big actions to win the fight? Because if she can just pitter-patter on the outside and stay active, that might be able to at least narrow the fight in terms of judging.
It is a hard one. I mean, for Bueno Silva, no 5-round fights in her pro MMA career. For Holly Holm, this is going to be her 10th. Hanging around, getting it done in 5-rounders. So it is a tricky one. We threw this one out there to you folks in the YouTube community tab. You guys always show up for these. 1,500 total votes in 2 days. 64% going with Holly Holm to get the win. There were a lot of negative comments out there, even though majority had Holm to get the dub. Over in the comment section on the live show, Edward Kelly, I favor Holly, but Mayra has nasty body strikes and her tools that can favor her later in fights. Dirty Reg saying Holm could easily be robbed by the judges in this spot. And Brandor is saying finished by Silva or maybe a decision for Holm if she wrestles. When you're trying to make a pick on this one, obviously you look at it, Holm has all the experience. She's an aging fighter at 41. Bueno Silva, 10 years younger and getting ready at ATT in the States for this one. It's a tough enough pick. It's weird because Bueno Silva in 2 of her last 3 fights has been more than a 5-1 favorite. Lena Landsberg and against Wu Yanan. But the weird thing is, if you're a 5-1 favorite and you have a fight of the night against Wu Yanan, then it's weird. It's really weird when you get into extended striking exchanges against Wu Yanan, who trains at Jackson Wink with Holly Holm. I find that weird.
I find a lot about this fight weird. Unless Holly Holm's like falling off a cliff like Max Kellerman thought that Tom Brady was going to do when he left the Patriots. I think Holly Holm's got this one. I do. I just think her physicality is a real issue for a lot of her opponents. We've seen it throughout this recent run, and the fight that really imprinted it into my mind was that Raquel Pennington rematch that they had. Raquel is a fighter who, when she goes out there and wins, it's a lot of that dirty boxing, it's a lot of that kind of uglier wrestling up against the cage. Holly Holm completely negated it, like all of it, and she was the one going out there and using her own clinch work, so I do expect that to be her game plan for this matchup, and I do have Holly Holm as a result.
Matt, the fans, they like Mayra Bueno Silva. I've got Holly Holm in the matchup, because I do think that the striking is going to pay enough dividends for Holly Holm in the matchup. Now, again, when you look at this fight week, the live video, it's a Tuesday night and we're doing a live video. Why is that? Because as I said, I traveled all of last week into the weekend, came home late because Air Canada, do they delay flights?
Oh, they do.
4 flights and every single one of them delayed. So that is the reason behind this, but I'm going to be home on the weekend and we will have question mark kicks at the normal time, 2 hours before the prelims for Holm versus Bueno Silva. And a lot of people down on this card, and I am, because again, it's a lot of...
watch the opener to this video.
It's quality over quantity, but when you do consider this, like, there's a lot of close matchups on it, and that's what, I guess, makes it intriguing for all of us and makes it fun to make a show. But if you do look at it, Holm versus Bueno Silva, have there been main events that have been not the greatest on paper in the past? Yeah. Paige Van Zandt main evented one time against Michelle Watterson.
To be fair, that fight after it happened wasn't even that great. Oh. I know it was a quick finish, but...
Yikes. So, Matt, you can find us, as always, at Craig Allen FMP, at Matt Allen FMP on Twitter and Instagram, unless you've exceeded the rate limit, but I haven't seen that pop up.
It's not a thing anymore, I don't think, so that's cool.
They were just hot to trot on it for a bit. Mark Zuckerberg, looking bodied up on the Instagram. So, Matt, we'll see if that fight happens with the Twitter guy. Enjoy the fights as they come up through this week. Make sure you check out the rest here with Fight Night picks. Those individual videos will get out there when they float out there. Some big time stuff coming up this week. Keep it locked in with Fight Night picks. As we always say,
let's get into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, recorded in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, it's time for Fight Night Picks with your host, Craig and Matt Allen.